All right. Casper, do you want to maybe we could introduce ourselves and then do a recap on what riffing is and then jump into Thomas's challenge today?
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. Yeah, I'm Casper, Ruby Rails consultant, used to be on a Rails core team. Been doing this riffing technique for a while. Let's get into it in a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to anyway. Jeremy, do you want to state your
Oh, and you're
business?
giving a RailsConf talk on it at
Right,
work.
about
Yeah.
sort of this thing mutated a little
Yeah.
bit, but yeah.
Excited for that. I just got my
Yeah.
RailsConf ticket a couple days ago. Got all the travel figured out, so I'm excited for that.
Heck yeah.
Um, I'm Jeremy Smith. I been a Rails developer for a good long time and run a tiny one-person web studio called Hybrid. And saw Casper's technique a few months ago, and we've been kind of riffing ever since. So it's been fun.
Yeah, and then we
Thomas, how
can
about you? You
I
want to
guess we could
introduce
just
yourself?
intro riffing a little bit and we can intro you, Thomas, because it sort of segues
Mm,
what we're doing.
yeah.
So riffing is sort of a technique to explore a domain model where you both have your sort of like an overall design sense that you didn't keep trying to match what code you're writing in a sketch file, essentially. Um, uh, I feel like this kind of covers it pretty briefly. It's kind of easy to see once we get started, but and so today we got Thomas on board who's giving us a challenge. So Thomas, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Thomas Cannon. Like Jeremy, I mean, like everyone else. I've been a Rubyist for like 12 years at this point. A friend reminded me, and I'm like, that's a long time. That's a long time with one language, but I mean, it's a great language. What are you gonna do? Um, and so the challenge that I had for us to dig into today is that Casper's been like kind of watching behind the scenes as I've been building out this app for a friend. Essentially, it's a dispatcher app for service companies to, oh, hold on.
Thomas is breaking,
Oh,
it
thanks,
says.
Dennis.
Okay, sorry about that. Is that better?
I could hear you fine the whole way through, so I'm a
Yeah,
little
I
bit
hadn't noticed
concerned.
anything
Yeah.
on my end either. Um, Dennis, I'm wondering if you're having any trouble with anybody else.
Okay. Let me see. Well, I was set to like temporarily mute, so I'm just open mic now. But I'm building out this app for a friend. It's a dispatcher app. He runs a service company so that he can plan and schedule his company's on sites. And the feature in question here is essentially the calendar and scheduling side of things. But more specifically, calendar syncing is going to be a tentpole feature of the app. Basically, using CalDAV, you'll be able to schedule on-sites, and it'll account for travel times using Google's Transit APIs. And then they'll be synced to a standard calendar server so that people can use their existing calendar software. And so there's a distributed backup of the schedule, basically making it so, resilient. And I'm not worried about this calendar syncing component, actually. That's going to be straightforward, if gnarly. Like I've done that kind of stuff before. The problem I wanted to riff on was how can I build a progressively enhanced scheduler in calendar? When I was originally talking with my friend, I was going to punt and use full calendar, which is it's as lightweight as a pure JavaScript component or pure JavaScript calendar can be. But given that this is an app that's going to be used in the field and in a variety of network conditions, and also just for the best practices of the web, I think it might be worth the investment of making it a like full-blown HTML based calendar. Like if something breaks with the JavaScript, I want my friend to still be able to use the app. But I'm not sure I mean, yeah, when I talked about it with Casper, we were like, oh man, there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. Like, what does it look like? What are the components and the divides between the front end and the back end? And is it possible, given the app's constraints on time and budget? Is this the kind of thing where it's two UIs? It's a big question.
Cool. Yeah. So for today, I think for riffing, we'll try to focus primarily on the domain objects itself.
Mhm.
There's a bunch of stuff to talk about in terms of where you're talking about in terms of like the split UIs and stuff like that. We probably won't be able to touch on that, but we can start with the modeling and figure out kind of maybe keeping some of that in mind and just see how far we can get. Part of the challenge and benefit, I think, of riffing is that you can kind of time box it and just see how far you can get, and like in that sort of multiple passes on sketching and seeing what comes up. So I think that's like the part of the value. We'll see how far we can get with it. Just to restate, a couple things that when I first heard the prompt that I wasn't totally clear on, but thought more about it, understood better. I think dispatcher is like someone that's at a company that's trying to get service workers to different locations at specific scheduled times. And then you have the onsite. That's the thing where a service worker is going to someone's house or a corporate office or something like that to do some kind of service, right? Like a carpenter or electrician or something like that.
It's an electrical company.
Cool. Okay.
So
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So those are the onsites. And then the challenge is figuring out how to set up the calendar events so we can get the right people to the right spots and they have enough time in between, or like figuring out which person is the best match in the field based on location and timing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
The good news is that like a lot of the scheduling is kind of done ahead of time. The way that they run their business is like, hey, we only get you on the schedule once. If we have to do it, we only do it at most twice. So like they already kind of know like, hey, we know that for this particular onsite, it's going to be like these 3 people. And so, we don't necessarily have to do the like, hey, this person is over in Seneca and, they need to go over to Anderson in order to do something. It's not that kind of scheduling.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. That's helpful. All right, let me start screen share and we'll just get into riffing. Share Z. All right. Are you able to see my Z here?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
All right. So let's think. How do we want to start? I guess we have this idea of an onsite. Is that maybe a place to start?
Yes. Yeah, I've got I came in with a couple of sketches of like how I was thinking the data model would go if you want me to print that out or just kind of state it out.
That's okay. I think we can just start here and see.
Okay.
So if we got an onsite, I think it's nice to start from scratch again and
Okay.
not necessarily copy anything in.
Okay.
An onsite is like the visit, right?
Yes.
It's like the time that a service worker or maybe multiple service workers comes for an appointment. And maybe it's even like an appointment. I don't know if that's a better, more generic term for it. I'm not sure, but does the onsite, I guess my first question is like, is an onsite, is it the event? Like, does it have the start and end time, or is there a separate like event, like calendar event that has one of or has many?
So I was imagining it that it would have one calendar event because part of this as well is like you know that this job's going to require an onsite, like let's say installing a circuit breaker, and that's like 4 or 5 different tasks. And so you're like, I know that in order to finish this job, we're going to have to be on site and do this. And it sits in drafts, or it sits in drafts until it's scheduled, and it's scheduled when there is a calendar event.
What is it for enum? Is it like status like this?
Yes, I think so.
Both works.
So
I
it
think.
could be like, it could be sitting in draft. I'm just like trying to finalized, or I don't know. I don't know if I like that, but so an onsite has multiple. Is the onsite okay? So does an onsite have all the tasks assigned to it, or does it belong to something like a job or a project?
So a job has many onsites, and an onsite has many tasks.
Okay. Sites. Okay. All right. So the onsite is like it's like a visit. I think the naming, it's probably industry naming, but I don't know it very well. So onsite, I keep thinking like, what does onsite mean? But it's similar to like, it's like visits or something like that. How's my text size, by the way? Is it okay?
For me, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So we've got onsites. They have one calendar event. I wonder if is that the best way to handle it, or should it be a belongs to, or any feedback on that so far?
I personally think a has one makes sense here because the relationship, like a calendar event belongs to an onsite.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a calendar. I mean, a calendar event, the intent of it is that it is tied to an onsite unless you've explicitly said like, this isn't actually tied to an onsite. Like somebody made a mistake and they put an event in the calendar that, doesn't actually tie to one of our onsites, or
Okay.
somebody puts in holiday time.
Okay, cool. Okay. So we got these jobs. I feel like maybe there's a good name spacing here. I can't think of what it might be. If you've got any ideas there, open to
I
it.
did organization,
Okay.
keeping
Yeah.
it like straightforward of like, hey, this is the entity that is responsible for this.
Yeah. I wonder if this should be more like just like calendar, maybe a namespace count. I don't know if there's another
Yeah.
concept inside of events that should be like that. But yeah, something like that. Okay. I guess this would be organization on site then. Does an event have multiple people assigned to it, or would it only be like one service worker?
So the onsite would have who's assigned to it. Like, an onsite has many like staff members
Okay.
attached to it. The calendar event model is separated to help keep the syncing straightforward. Because like as a calendar grows, like you're going to get a lot of data, and it's easier if it's like, hey, we just have this basically locally cached version of the iCal data that we can parse and work with. And that's what the calendar event largely exists as.
Okay. What are we thinking about assignments? Do we assign staff to to an on-site, or do we just yeah, I guess it seems
Um,
like that's the
Yeah, an on-site, you assign them to an on-site because there are certain ones that require certain people. Like, for example, let's say that you have to deal with Duke Energy. There's one person that's really good at dealing with Duke Energy. They know how
Mhm.
Duke Energy works. They know who to talk to. So if you're doing something where you have to like take the power down, you want the person who knows the people at Duke Energy to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Um all right. That's helpful. I'm not liking this name staff. I feel like I need something else because if I don't want to. I also don't like this. If I call it
Mm.
organization and then I've got the org, I wonder if it should be company. That doesn't feel right either. Any
Or I could
suggestions?
unnamespace that and keep the other ones
Just
nested
Yeah.
to the
on
organization.
namespace. Yeah.
I
Okay.
might do it that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it would have organization jobs. Um, okay. And then this belongs to an organization. Has many on sites for this job. Has many jobs. Okay. What are we thinking about the staff name? Any other better naming for
I wonder at the
that? Like
organization if it would make sense to call them just users, essentially.
users? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was like I had like users have memberships in an organization,
Uh-huh.
and that was how I managed it. So, it could be it has many users through a membership.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Organization.
And so the idea
Trying to
being with that you could then have one user account that could then be attached to multiple different organizations, essentially. And so they
Yes,
could have like a
because
single sign-on, and then like, oh, I could both be at the Duke one or the other one you mentioned. I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically you got moonlighters, you know what I mean? You got people who work multiple jobs and basically trying to follow the good advice of teams should be an MVP feature.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it's something like this. We got an
Yep.
organization. It has jobs. It also has memberships to users. We got the users. I think I've got my belongs to. I think that's the right association there.
Yeah.
Then users belong to, I guess this would be belongs to organization membership, or has many organization memberships. And then we've got these jobs belong to an organization. They have many onsites. Onsites have one calendar event. And then I think I want to change this to maybe just assignments. I'm not sure. Either
Yeah.
user assignments or I'm not sure what, but
You
something
could you
like
could
that.
potentially do another join table there where you have an on-site assignment, and then those belong to
Mhm.
either, an on both belong to an on-site and a user then.
Yeah, okay. I like that. Assignment. And this is belongs to site to organization. Yeah, it's where the namespace there. Okay. How's this looking so far? Any feedback?
See, we got something in the chat here. Couldn't there be many on-sites for the same calendar event? That's interesting.
Um, how do you mean? I hadn't thought about that one.
It might be that we just say that if if it occurs at a particular place and time, it's just one event. Do you think
Yeah.
that's a safe assumption? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I could see how you might model it like maybe you had in the same building two different things happening on far ends of the same building, but they have the same address, the same time. But maybe just for the sake of it does seem like for a V1 of an app, you might just go with one or something.
Right. And because it's a CalDAV server, like, calendars are used to representing overlapping events,
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, where, oh, hey, we've just double booked the team, like what you were
Yeah.
saying.
That's a good thought, Juan, though.
And
Yeah.
in a way, some of that could be at the task level even. Like if it's like, oh, I need something in building A, this
Oh
thing
yeah,
has to
yeah,
happen in building A, and that's at the
yeah.
task level almost. Or there could even be like you know, for some reason the term assortment comes up in my mind, but the idea of like, oh, we need to do the exact same tasks first to this
Mhm.
building, then building B, then building C. That's almost like we want to like repeating tasks or something like that. But that's almost like the
Yeah,
location is almost scoped to that task collection or a setup or whatever you might call that, if there's something like that, depending on how structured we want that modeling for these tasks.
yeah.
Because in a way that could almost just be a description field that you just like a task isn't
Right.
really a task. It could just be like a whole description field and you could just like copy them out, copy them back and forth between these different locations in a way. And that might be a
Yeah,
really easy way to get a lot of flexibility without us needing to model a ton of
yeah,
stuff, if that makes sense. Because in my mind, I
yeah.
was
And then
seeing
down the
like
road, maybe
it
you
could
could
have a
formalize it maybe later.
yeah, and then it could be because in my mind, so I was kind of seeing, have this almost like this table view or whatever, where there's like location A, B, and C, and then you can have two, text fields for each, and then you could just copy back and forth between them if you need to replicate tasks or whatever, rather than us needing to dive so deep in it potentially.
Mhm.
As
Yeah.
we might will very well want that, but
Um, where are the gaps that we're seeing? Do you see any? Where should I go next?
let's see, we've got
Um,
the assignment, so we can, yeah, so we can put different team members on, and then if someone's sick that day, could swap it out for someone else. That feels really flexible there.
Yeah,
Got that part. Da-da-da, we got the event there. Do you want to look more at the details of the event itself?
yeah. This feels
Of
like not
not
much
doing
going
the
on here.
CalDAV syncing itself, but maybe some of the
Right.
things we want to plug out from some of that. Let's see.
Submit. Yeah. What might make sense there? Um, I guess maybe I
So,
want to go back to where like the maybe I want to go think about what the dispatcher is doing. When a dispatcher, they're the one that creates the event, right? They're the one that's
yes.
okay. So a dispatcher comes in and we already have an organization for them. We already have the users and their memberships. There's probably already a job that exists.
Yeah, they usually like somebody would answer the phone or they get an email from somebody and they're like, hey, our lights are out. Like I need you to go, or we need to do like an LED replacement, replace all
uh-huh.
these compact fluorescents with LEDs. And they're like, okay, cool. Like we've been to your place before. Tell us when around you're available. And they're like taking notes of like, okay, here's the things that we need to do for an LED install. And then, they're like, hey, I'll go check the schedule and we'll figure out a time and, get back to you. And
Mhm.
then they would look at the calendar and try to like come up with like I was imagining there are like two different workflows that you end up running into where it's like um you're scheduling it out for a particular time. Like, let's
Mhm.
say you're like, oh, hey, this isn't that big of a priority, so we could wait like a few weeks out for these other jobs that need to come in.
Mhm.
Or this is going to take a long time, so I need to find a day where like the team members are generally available.
Yeah.
And what I was going to do for V1 is again, it being a regular like calendar, like, you could just have your calendar app open to
Mhm.
help like decide those things. And then the way I was thinking as well is like if you wanted to, it's either like drag and drop the onsite into your calendar, and there's like an iCal file that it generates using the web APIs, or it does something where if you like made a calendar event, but the URL matches the URL of the onsite, it matches. And then the other one is like just okay, try to fit this in where it makes sense. Like, where do we have a gap in our
Mhm.
schedule? And does the estimated time of the onsite fit into that?
Oh, that's interesting. So an onsite has an estimated time. So it's almost
Yes,
like that's an attribute.
it's
Uh,
populated based on the tasks. So, like it's hard for somebody to say, it's hard it's easy. I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Trying to do the math when you're on an onsite of like how long is this going to take
yeah.
takes a while because you're trying to think of everything. But if you're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's going to take me like 90 minutes to rip out the old circuit breaker, and it's going to take me 30 minutes to put it in, then 60 minutes for a wiring check, and then that's computers. Computers are sand that do math. Like that's great for them. They can do that all day.
Yeah. I'm wondering, this makes me wonder if on-site tasks have their own duration. I wonder, like, it's making me think when you're first coming in, the first task is to think about what needs to happen on the on-site. So you're
Hmm.
creating it, maybe not even trying to schedule it yet. You're just trying to create it, think about what the tasks are and how much time they take. I don't know what the right thing is here, but maybe you're even like putting in the task and a guess, and then maybe it gets calculated up here. I don't know. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that's how
So
I was
maybe
thinking about it. Is
maybe it's some
like
kind of total estimated duration or estimated total duration or something like that. That gets calculated as you add on-site tasks. So then the first pass is you create the on-site, maybe with all the on-site tasks. Maybe that's one screen where you're defining the oh, we don't even have, I'm totally missing the client or something. I don't know if, what do you call that? Is that like is it a client? Is it a customer? Um
that that one I hadn't thought about yet. I was going to say that like a job belongs to like a customer or a client.
oh, maybe up here. So maybe it's on the job. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's funny. So one of the things that I don't know how I feel about this yet, but feels like job and on-site, it's hard to I'm wondering if when the dispatcher is working quickly, if they have to go create a job first just to create an offsite or an onsite. It feels a little like I can imagine sometimes the job being really helpful where it's the orchestration of many pieces of many onsites that need to happen. But for one-offs, it's kind of annoying they would have to go make a job and then an
Yep.
onsite.
So what
I
I
wonder
was
if this is
going
almost like a category that's not required. I don't
Mhm.
know. Like you
So
can categorize blog posts, but they don't have to have a category. And then they could come together into a collection, but they don't have to be in the collection.
that's interesting. See, I hadn't thought of it that way. What I was going to do in like, after the initial beta launch was I was going to have because I'm using active model to like build out form objects, I would have just had like a job name field that is
Mhm.
basically a data list where it's like, hey, here's your list of existing job or like active jobs. And you can type it in. But if you type something new, like if you type in a new job name, then it just auto creates the job and then as part of creating that on site.
Yeah, I guess in one sense, keeping the job means that it's always consistent. You always know that an on-site will be part of a job, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe the benefit of having on-sites outside of a job would be just to make it more clear when there are one-offs. Um, because you could just say, does this like find all the off-sites? I keep want to say off-sites. Find all the on-sites that belongs to job. Belongs, come on, Jeremy, belongs to job, optional, true. Like if this was optional, you could
Mm-hmm.
say find all the on sites where job ID is null, and that would tell you all the on sites that are just like one-offs. I don't know, that could be interesting. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
helpful at all, but yeah,
I
I guess you can definitely solve the UI challenge though with the form objects like you're saying.
yeah. And my personal I feel like having it because the other thing the one thing that I'm kind of worried about with a with having an onsite that isn't tied to a job is that that can, especially if it's like a bunch of job a job ideally is one on-site, but I know from experience it can often become multiple on-sites because there are unexpected things that you don't run into.
Like
Um
you have to do follow-up work. Like, so somebody back
exactly.
out for a thing that maybe, yeah, okay.
Yeah, like I mean, realistic example, because like this friend did the electrical rebuild in my house.
Mhm.
We thought it was going to be a day. It took 2 or 3 days because the second he took back the circuit panel, he was like, oh God, we need to, this is
Yeah,
much bigger than we thought.
yeah,
So, that by requiring it to like be tied to a job, you already like bake that in. It's,
yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, okay, yeah, I buy all that. Okay, so is there anything else that's key to what a job is? um I guess,
No,
maybe it doesn't matter too much. We can yeah, I'm not sure that matters too much. I don't want to think too much
yeah.
about that. Maybe I get
There's
back to
like, yeah.
the calendar stuff, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
uh
Mhm.
okay, so if the dispatcher goes through, creates the on-site, lists out the tasks, we get maybe an estimated duration. Maybe that gives us a total duration. We have a guess as to how long this on-site needs to last, and now they need to schedule it. So
Mm-hmm.
now we've got an on-site specified, but it doesn't have a calendar event. Oh, Yuri says, shouldn't tasks be part of a job? I might have missed something. Yeah, yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, Yuri, I've thought about that as well. I figured that it could be a job or tasks belong to a job through their on sites.
Oh yeah, so maybe it's like
Mm.
belongs to you, for a belongs to, would it be has one through the onsite, or would I just make a
Oh, yeah, Yuri's right. The task does need to be scoped to the um hmm.
main job task? Oh, job task. Oh, I see. Well, I guess the question is the task primarily about what happens for this onsite, or is it specific to the larger job? Where does
Hmm.
it more naturally live? Is it more likely that tasks need to move between onsites, or that they really are critically important to the onsite itself?
They can move between on sites. It might be this sort of thing
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, we thought we were going to get to this today, but the wiring took too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Yuri. I think that makes sense. So
Yeah,
maybe
I agree.
I don't know that I want to go to a third level of namespacing, but maybe job tasks. I don't love that name, but something like that
Yeah, I was
makes
also
sense to
wondering
me.
if some of this is just in the naming of it, because we have job and then we have task, and it feels like they naturally like stick together. But I'm wondering if they actually do, or if there's a name different to task or maybe job even that would be clearer in a sense. I don't know what those would be, but it's like there in my mind at least I can see the sense of like wanting to, oh, a job and then that has many tasks and it's like very easy to make that link in a way, but I'm almost wondering if that's too
Yeah.
strong in a way where it's leading a certain design that might not be what it actually is that we're
Yeah.
looking at or doing or something. But I don't know what that would be, what those alternative names would be.
One of the things I just noticed with this is if we move task to be associated with the job, it's got an estimated duration. That makes sense that you would have sort of, you're setting up a job, you don't know when it needs to be, everything needs to be scheduled, and you're giving everything an estimated the duration as you're going through. You're thinking about the project. Oh, this is going to be 30 minutes. This is an hour. This is 90 minutes, whatever. But when it comes to calculating the estimated duration of an on-site, you need to plug all those things together to get some kind of, if this is a valid use case of trying to get this estimated total duration, so we know where to stick it in the schedule, how long it should roughly take, um, then we need some way still of associating the task back to an on-site. Maybe they start at the job, so they kind of live at the job level, but then they get an assignment to the on-site when the work is sort of being divvied up. Okay, here's the on-site. We're going to take these 5 tasks, put them on this on-site. Okay, that's going to be 3 hours. All right, so we know we need a calendar event that's a 3-hour time duration. What do you
Yes.
think, Thomas?
Yeah, no, that works out. That works out well, and that saves like I like that a lot because then you can basically have the like, what are the tasks that we know we need to do, but we haven't assigned them to a particular on-site.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That helps avoid burying the things that need to get done.
Yeah, okay. Cool. That feels good because then that lets, and I can imagine that working somewhat with the different uh job titles or roles in an org
Mhm.
where the person that's thinking like the punch list of stuff that needs to be done may not be the person that's assigning people to it or breaking up the work and to say like these 3 people are going to go here and do these 10 things, at this time. So this lets the person that's planning a job specify the tasks and has the knowledge about what's a reasonable time estimate for each of those things. They can kind of do their thing. Somebody else can come in and do the task assignment potentially to the particular
Mhm.
on-site, which gives them a total amount of time. And from that, they can set the calendar event. And maybe even that's another person, like, because the
Yeah.
person that's organizing the work here might still be someone that's different than the person that's got to look at the calendar and say, all right, who do we where do we schedule this or something like that. Okay. Any other thoughts so far? We haven't really gotten to the event stuff.
That's always that's always the typical part of doing these
I
things
do
of
feel
like,
like the
oh,
rest of
there's
this
all the other
feels pretty
skeleton
good.
around it. Sorry, what were you saying,
Yeah.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm curious. I feel pretty decent about the rest of this up here. This is like I feel like I'm getting a sense of what it's supposed to look like, at least this time around. Where once we've got, I guess maybe the place to say next is like, okay, if we know we have an on-site that's created, it's not scheduled yet. I don't know if an on-site should be maybe it's automatic. Maybe it's more of like a derived status when it has the calendar event that calls it schedule at that point. But if prior to it having this calendar event that's attached to it, if we've got the on-site and it's got the tasks for it and we have a total duration, the next thing that a person needs to do is take that on-site and do what? Um,
They need to, so they have the on-site, and then it's the question of where does it fit onto the calendar? How
okay.
do we get this onto a calendar? Um,
Does it matter at this point who is assigned to the on-site?
Not in this version. It's a
Okay.
small enough team that like you'll know if
Yeah.
somebody's sick
Okay.
or out of town.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we got the task assignments. I got to take this off, right? I guess it's on-site assignments. Maybe it has many on-site tasks through assignments.
Right. Yeah.
Desk assignments. Okay. And okay, so we've got the on-site. We've got a they've got a calendar that they can look at. And we know we have an estimated total duration, so we know at least the minimum time necessary for start and end time, I guess.
Mhm.
What else is needed on the calendar? We've got attributes for start and end date. I guess start time and end time.
Yeah, start time and end time.
Sometimes I call these started at and ended at to kind of follow
Yeah,
created at
that's
and
probably
updated
better.
at. It's
Yeah.
never.
Yeah. I was gonna have a cache of the like iCal event data in here, because data models will change over time, and so like having the source to reparse is helpful, but that's
Right.
like not important here. I was
Were you thinking
wondering,
like caching at the database level, like a read model of sorts?
yeah, like basically like the calendar event is like, oh yeah, this is the iCal of this is the like iCal event data. Like the iCal as a format, it's just a text block. And so it was like, well, let's just cache that in the database because trying to look that up on the calendar server is expensive to do.
Okay. If we had a read model, I don't know. Should we explore this or should we just
Yeah.
assume that's sort of out of scope? So if we had a read model, it would have an event, but it's sort of like the flattened, denormalized attributes so that it's really fast. I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
We
Yes.
want the event data like started at and ended at. This is also going to have a location, I guess, but maybe location comes from on-site. It belongs to the job. Oh yeah, we didn't have a location. I forgot about that.
Locations, I was saying, were part of the on-site.
Okay, so
Yeah.
belongs to.
Yeah, belongs to the yep, location.
Okay, maybe it's customer. I don't know if I like that, but it's up there. Location. Maybe it belongs to the customer and belongs to the organ.
Honestly, I was keeping location as like just like a top level, like
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
just outside because it's not necessarily that they own the building. It could be really anywhere. You
yep.
just need a location. Okay. Maybe is it location or is address better or
I say I was saying location, or realistically the database model was like Google Place location, like because
okay.
that's where we're sourcing the data. Like this is a cached version of
Yeah.
the Google Places autocomplete.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So it belongs to when they're creating when the person that takes the on-site when they go to make the calendar event, they're choosing the time frame, they're also choosing the location. Or no, sorry, that's already specified here on the
Yeah.
on-site. They're saying for this job, here's the location, and here are the on-site the tasks that need to be done. That gives us a total duration, and then we set the calendar event. Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. So back down here, is iCal the right? Is this the right name for the read model if we had one? Again, so this is the idea that for performance, if we have some read model that's the derived values of all this stuff up here, maybe it's a materialized view, or maybe it's a background job that refreshes this data, or maybe it's just callbacks that I don't know, something that creates this read model that's a flattened view of the data. Is this the right name for it, or is there something better?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Partly what I was thinking was almost having something called the calendar event blob or block or something. But that's also kind of unclear in a way. But more, yeah, I don't know.
Calendar event blob. Is that what we said?
Yeah, blob. Yeah, I don't know quite the purpose of what that would be in a way, but like I mean, it is to capture this stuff, but just to get a little bit of that sense of like the data stuff in a way, or the read parts, that it's kind of like, this is kind of like a static thing. We don't really want to make it
Right.
look like it's a live object that just like can be mutated or whatever. You can, because it's Ruby,
Mhm.
but the intent is more, so kind of what I'm thinking here is similar to what active storage has, because it has like active storage blob, and those are technically meant to be immutable. Again, it's Ruby, you could update it, but they're
Yeah.
attached to one key on like an S3,
Uh-huh.
whatever. And then from that,
yeah.
you could then generate many attachments, and that's, which is then a join model between a specific record and then a specific blob, essentially. And that's how,
Yeah.
you can do has one attached and has many attached. So this is kind of what I'm
That makes sense.
imagining in a way. Not that you have these blobs attached to it, but that's sort of the intent, but maybe it could be clearer.
Yeah. I like that it has the sort of, yeah, as soon as you said blob, I was thinking, oh, I wonder if he means active storage. So that's
Yeah.
cool. The only thing maybe that I worry a little bit about is just like that, in this case, if the location on the onsite changes, then this blob does need to change. But maybe that's not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
maybe you generate another version of it in a way, so that can be like attached to, and then
You
the
sort of
latest blob is
invalidate
what's the
old one.
current in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Interesting.
That might be a version to do it. I'm not sure. I'm
I
also
haven't done
wondering, I'm
something
just
like
looking
this,
at,
so I'm not
no,
exactly
not
sure.
quite.
Sorry.
No, I haven't done quite something like this actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess at this level, it still needs maybe relationships back uh, to the organization, maybe, or
Yeah. I'm not quite sure.
like if we want to be able to scope down and see the events, maybe it keeps a lot of the relationships um, to the on-site.
Maybe we could just do the onsite, and from there you can kind of like traverse
Pick,
as much
yeah,
as you
pick
can,
everything
Well,
kind of.
else out of it.
wouldn't
Yeah.
the event the event blob be associated, or I guess it would,
With the calendar event.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. It belongs to the
Yeah,
calendar event, and it propagates everything else from there.
that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if
Okay.
this is because if this is
That's the
a
entry point.
yeah, because if it's a read model, like really what we're keeping this for is for data syncing and is for data syncing purposes.
Yeah.
So you don't want to, the more associations it has with it, the more likely somebody is going to start poking around and like using it in places where it doesn't need to be
Yeah.
used.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good
Yeah,
point.
this
Okay.
this is
So we
almost in a
sort of
way
defend
meant to
this
try to
one.
be a leaf node in your whole object graph. It's like this is it's at the tail end of everything. You don't want to like in a way, but yeah. So
Yeah. Okay. So then if we flatten this out, it needs the started and ended at, it needs the location. I'm just gonna do it like this, like
Yeah,
coming from the I'm just gonna guess that on location we have
we have a
a
humanized
flattened.
address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um uh, that has the whole, street and
yeah,
city, state and all that. Um location, address, what else we got? Started at, ended at, location. We need probably the name of the on-site. Do we need the on-site? I guess in on-site, doesn't on-site have a name? Do we
yeah,
name the on-site?
potentially,
It
or maybe the job has a name in a way.
a label. That's what I was doing. I was labels.
Okay.
I was doing labels versus names
Right.
for onsites.
Okay. And then a job has a name. Is that
Yeah.
what you're thinking?
That's what I was thinking. Is like, hey, this is that particular job, but onsites are inherently like scratch paper that you write on a half legal pad that
Yeah.
eventually get thrown out.
Right. Right. Okay. So on-site label, and what else do we got?
See, that's
Maybe
interesting because onsite label almost makes it again look like it's reaching back into stuff where it's almost wanting to
too
be a little
much.
bit simpler in a way. So I almost wonder if it's like a what's it called in like iCal? It's just called an event name or something
Yeah,
like
it's
that,
just
or
called
what's
a
it?
like a title. I think there's so the
Title's
field
better.
We
title
could just say that comes
notes.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pre-filled from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, and maybe that's the case with this too. I just want to say, like, it's got an address or a location. Yeah, address. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's coming
yeah.
from
That's
location,
yeah.
and this is coming from on-site.
mhm.
Is there anything else that is common on this? maybe maybe the people that are assigned to that event.
Right, yeah, like a
Invites or invite attendees is the account name for it.
yes.
Okay.
And it's a list of email addresses.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And that would come off of
Yeah, those
no,
assignments there. Yeah, yeah.
assignments on
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, all right. That's interesting. This feels like a workable way to approach it to get sort of performance and I guess these other things that you're looking
Mhm.
for with it. I
Yeah,
don't
and then
know if
the
I would necessarily want to start there. I guess just depending on like how big this app is. I don't know like how big the usage would be. I don't know that it's needed, but it is
um
interesting.
another attribute that you need on the event blob, and it's a critical one, is the URL. Because that's how events are going to be assigned to on sites.
Okay. That's
Basically,
how events are.
using the fact that a universal resource locator is a universal resource locator and
Yeah.
calendar events can have a URL. So that's how you like sync it. It's kind of like a transaction ID in YNAB or Stripe, where it's like, um, think of the calendar as like, this is what's posted on your bank account. And everything in Dispatcher is like, everything that you have listed in YNAB. And then in YNAB, you do like an account reconciliation process.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So where does this URL come from and how do we ensure that it stays the same when it should?
So the URL is provided, it's either provided by the user or when somebody like, in Dispatcher would like drag and drop out the iCal event that it generates would have that URL.
Is the URL from the app or is it a URL they're entering that they
It's a
get from
U
somewhere else?
it's a URL from the app, if that makes it's a URL to a particular resource in the app. Like it's
That
like
is publicly available or something
um
shared.
it would I don't necessarily know if it would be publicly shared. I was just thinking like, dispatcher.com/onsite/2.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Okay.
then we can look at that and say, is this an on-site URL? Does it match an on-site? Like, does it match this? If not, we need to present like we basically need to do like the YNAB thing of like, hey, we saw this thing. Is it like, do you approve it, reject it? Do you need to adjust the details? That sort of thing.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. But you're saying that maybe there are other scopes within the your like there might be something else other than onsite/2, like it could be something um like job or something.
Um, it would be
Maybe.
So in this case, it would be either I was thinking more along the lines of somebody could just make a bad calendar event. They put a calendar event in something that isn't there.
Hmm.
And so just presenting that as part of the UI. And there'd probably be like an attribute here to say like ignore this calendar event. Like this
Okay.
one isn't relevant.
Okay.
Just
I was
thinking
just
about all the ways that data breaks.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say I think we got like 5 minutes until we have to run, Jeremy. So I wonder if we want to like stop it here and then
Yeah. Maybe just
have
pause
some
and
comments on it. And yeah,
yeah. That's a good. Yeah. That's good.
cool. Yeah, 83
What do we
lines of
think?
bunch of different stuff. Cool. Cool. Well, I definitely feel like I have a lot better sense of just like going through all these like tiny little revisions all the time. I feel like it gets us a nice sense of dexterity about all these things. You
Yeah.
know, this is an
Mhm.
onset, this is a job, this is a task. Oh, we wanted it here, but now we want it over here. And then like that whole movement for me when we do these sort of riffings, I always feel like, oh, now I feel like I have an understanding of what this is, so that I could take it if I was a developer and something, I'll take it to a stakeholder and stuff like that and be like, oh. Now I actually have a sense of this stuff and have a better sense of like shared ownership about these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this This matches close to what I had or what I have in code currently, but A, it's not launched, and B, we caught it at just the right time because I was starting to do the task stuff, and moving the tasks up to the job level makes a lot of sense. And I hadn't been thinking about that. So this is
Yeah, that
this
was
is why riffing, like, it isn't just for the beginning of the process, it's like sometimes great for the middle or right at the end. You know what I mean? Right before you really have to start dealing with user data.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I'm curious, are there were there areas that it would be nice to explore? Like if we did another pass on this, is there anything that you'd like to explore further that maybe we didn't dive too far into?
Um, that's a oh, the one thing that I'm still trying to figure out is like linking event, like having the event knowing the context in which it's scheduled, if that makes sense. Because like one of the biggest things you have to keep in mind is transit time between jobs. And
Mhm.
so I was thinking like maybe a calendar event has one preceding event where it's
Huh.
like, oh, this is the event that comes before me.
Okay.
And then with that, you can cache like the transit, like you could cache the estimated transit time between those two nodes.
Okay. Huh.
Interesting.
Because thinking about like when you punch an address into Google Maps, and you do the like arrive by, you say like, okay, how are you trying to schedule this? Are you trying to schedule it as if you're leaving now, leaving at a particular time, or you need to arrive by a time?
I
Interesting.
almost wonder if we want to model that actually not at the event level, but almost having
Yeah.
something like a calendar slice or calendar segment, which then is roughly like a day, essentially. And then in between those, you could have events plopped on it, but you could also have these in between things that are like
Hmm.
this, like the more ephemeral stuff like travel, transit time, or whatever, that could
Uh,
potentially be like a some sort of polymorphic association or like a delegated type kind of thing that could then either point to an event or point to this transit time or something, like an entry in the slice or segment, if you will.
yeah, I was
Yeah,
thinking
this
it's like a
this
transit
worries me.
window.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
It worries me too, Jeremy.
Yeah, the belong like doing this, I wouldn't want like I can just think already. I probably wouldn't want to go that route, but it'd be interesting to explore this other idea of like actually modeling the windows too,
Hmm.
and then or creating these slices or whatever. That would be interesting. Um
Okay, cool.
Unfortunately
So
we
we
don't have time to do
yeah,
that
we
today, but that
gotta
would be
wrap it
yeah,
up. Yeah,
that would be a cool like next step. That feels like um definitely advanced level right there.
yeah,
I could let
very fun to see
Casper
it.
drive on that one.
Yeah, 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 we could do that. That's good. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, I think this is the last one we're doing for a while. We're doing kind of a cohort course
Yeah.
in April where we're looking at a bunch of people to sign up and everything. And of course, there's always the YouTube videos, and we'll put this up on YouTube too in a bit. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say. I don't know. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for bringing your case, Thomas. This was really fun actually to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun to see all these things pop out and how much you can kind of reach in like 40, 50 minutes or something. Yeah.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
Jeremy, if you want to
That's
send
pretty
the
decent.
code to me, I can put it up on the repo and everything. Yeah.
We'll
Or you
do.
can make a PR too. I think it's public and everything. You want to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool.
Cool.
That sounds good.
Sweet. Okay.
Um, yeah, thanks everybody. This is fun.
See.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Sure thing, Thomas.